guys, it's Gabby, and today I'm going to be finally reviewing Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, the first book in the Dark Artifices series. And I was so excited to finally get this book and read it, and I finished it in like 3 days. So I'm definitely very excited to talk about all my thoughts and feels finally, because I knew I wanted to get to it eventually, and so now is finally the time. So let's just get right into the feels and get started with it. As I said before, Lady Midnight is the first book in the Dark Artifices series, which follows Emma Carstairs and Julian Blackthorne 5 years after all the events that take place in City of Heavenly Fire. So you essentially get to see how those events affect them and how that affected how they grew up, and so then seeing them now. And so definitely it's very interesting to see their character growth and how they've changed and how those certain things have affected them, and the things that you find out about them are absolutely fantastic. And this is definitely the best book that Cassandra Clare has written in terms of first books in a series, because City of Bones and Clockwork Angel are definitely very good books, but I feel like there's a lot of introduction, a lot of things that have to go on, and a lot of characters you need to be introduced to that you don't really get to just like dive right in and really enjoy it. Whereas with Lady Midnight, you get to just dive right in because you, the reader, already have all the backstory that you need. You have all 6 books of the Mortal Instruments, and you have all 3 books of the Infernal Devices, and you have the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. All of that is your backstory for this book and your explanation for this book. So you don't need anything. There isn't any other explanation that goes into this book, so you just get to dive right in. And also, the female protagonist doesn't need any explanation either, because Emma Carstairs is the first female protagonist in a Cassandra Clare novel that isn't getting introduced to the Shadow World in the first few books. Emma has grown up in the Shadow World. She knows it like the back of her hand. She doesn't need any explanation. And so you don't have to worry about having to explain anything for her. Everything is already explained, and you just get to dive right into the story, which is why I would totally recommend reading all of the other books in the Shadowhunter Chronicles before starting Lady Midnight, because you're going to enjoy it so much more, and you'll be able to get into it a lot more, and you're going to know all the characters already, and you're going to have all the explanation already, and you'll just be able to dive right in, and nothing else will get spoiled for you for the other books. So it's totally worth it to read all 6 books of the Mortal Instruments, all 3 books of the Infernal Devices, and all the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. It makes your life so much easier. I guarantee it to you. So I'm pretty much gonna leave it there for the non-spoiler section. So if you have not read any of Cassandra Clare's books in the Shadowhunters Chronicles or need to finish them up, go and finish them and then start Lady Midnight, and then we can fangirl about this book together because it's absolutely fantastic! So Lady Midnight starts out from the point of view of this kid, Kit Rook. And, like, I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, like, okay, there's gonna be, like, something interesting about this kid. But I had no idea that he would be the lost frickin' Herondale. Like, holy shit. I just was not expecting that at all. And that's, like, what Cassandra Clare can do. She can just write these things that are really obvious, and it's right in front of your face, but you just can't put it together. And so he's the frickin' lost Herondale, which is huge. And so you hear about that in the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, and you know that Jem and Tessa are looking for Lost Herondale, and so they find him, it's Kit, and so now I'm extremely excited to figure out the backstory behind all of this, and really how he is the Lost Herondale, like what all the connections are, and really figuring it out, and him getting to figure it out, and getting to see a lot of Tessa, Jem, Kit stuff, and a lot of hopefully getting to actually see Kit and Katrina Loss kind of reunite, because Katrina saved the Lost Herondale, so I think that they should definitely reunite, and I definitely want to see that in Lord of Shadows. And just that was huge for me, like reading that and like suddenly hitting that point where I was like, holy shit, because I knew he was going to be important, but like for him to be the Lost Herondale is absolutely insane. And figuring out how Johnny Rook plays into all of this, because he was like a magic dealer, like in the shadow market, and so there's a lot more that we don't know about this, and I'm super excited to get into and see essentially like if there's going to be any relationship that goes on with Kit, like who he's going to end up with, just kind of like seeing where this character plays out, because I was totally not expecting that, and so I think it's huge to now introduce another character into the shadow world and see them sort of get to grow, because I think that was extremely huge part of the book. So to open up from his point of view is absolutely insane, and just totally didn't see it coming. Getting into 2 other big WTF moments, So we have the fact that we're trying to figure out who is responsible for the death of Emma's parents. And a lot of us at first dismissed it as Sebastian. Like everybody in the Clave and a lot of other people, like everybody just thought, you know, it's Sebastian, that's the end of the line, there really isn't anything else here. And so what you find out is that Malcolm Fade is responsible for the deaths of Emma's parents because he essentially used them as an experiment to raise his girlfriend, Annabelle Lee, who got buried alive by the Blackthorns as she was a Blackthorn because she was in love with a warlock. And so he's trying to raise her now, and so he killed her parents as an experiment, which is just so freaking shitty, like that's how they actually died, that it wasn't like their death was actually useful, it was just an experiment, which is even worse. And so, like, Malcolm Fade's a freaking evil little motherfrigger, and he's, like, going around and has this whole thing set up where he's the guardian, and he's, like, getting other people to commit murder so he can chop off their hands, and then use the hands to raise his girlfriend, and then he also needs Blackthorn blood to raise them, so you see that through this whole poem that they're decoding. And so then, you know, I have no idea how he gets the Blackthorn blood, because then Annabelle Lee ends up getting raised, which is another big, like, WTF moment, because you're like, how is that possible if there wasn't any Blackthorn blood to raise her? But apparently she is arisen, so I'm interested to see how that plays out, and I think we're probably going to have to kill her in the second book, but I have no idea if she's going to be, like, normal, or if she's going to be, like, a robot, or what the hell she's going to be, but she's Lady Midnight, and so, like, that was huge to see, like, she's alive now, and that's super freaking creepy, especially how it's revealed. Like, the way it's revealed, you get the freaking chills. For years, her coffin had been dry. Now seawater dripped in through the fine, porous holes in the wood and stone, and with the seawater, blood. It fell onto parched bones and dry sinew, and soaked her winding shroud. It moistened her withered lips. It brought with it the magic of the ocean, and with it the blood of the one who had loved her, a stranger magic still. In her tomb, by the sounding sea, Annabelle's eyes opened. Like, holy shit. Like, that is such a freaking fantastic way to end a story with, like, now she's raised and, like, we don't know if Malcolm is dead. Like, I would assume he's probably not dead because we don't have a body, and if we don't have a body, then most likely he's not dead, even though apparently we killed him, but I have no idea. So, like, are they going to reunite and fall in love and be evil together? Like, what is Annabelle going to be like? Is she going to be, like, normal or, like, very confused? Or is she going to be, like, a robot sort of, like, demon creature thingy? Like, what's going on with her? So that's a huge, major, like, big WTF moment. And then, like, with Malcolm, like, all of that towards the end is just major, like, all thrust at you all at once. And then you get another thing. Like, just after you, like, get this, or something you get before that I'm going to get to in a minute, that just, like, all at once, one after another, after another, after another, after another, and I can't freaking take it. So, talking about Mark Blackthorn now, because I think he's definitely a very interesting character in Cassie's writing, and definitely very much makes this story because of his character and how he's constantly changing. Because I feel like with a lot of Cassie's characters, you could easily peg them down with one or two adjectives that could easily describe them, but I feel like you can't do that with Mark Blackthorn because he's constantly changing throughout this book as to how he behaves and how you would describe him. Because it's like a certain moment you would have to pick that would describe him, but not a character overall. You can't really describe him because he's so all over the place, which is definitely something that's very different from Cassie's writing. And so I definitely very much thought that his character is a presence in this book. And so I was wondering, like, I didn't think we were going to see him right away in the first book. I thought that we would probably, like, see him maybe halfway through or, like, more than halfway through, and, like, we wouldn't get more of a presence from him until the second book. So him coming right into the story I think was fantastic because of his presence and how, like, much it added to the story. So I wonder if she planned on having Mark Blackthorn, like, brought immediately into the story, or if it was something that she was going to sort of wait upon and then decided, you want to know what, I need him in here. Because he has so many great moments in this book that are so fantastic and so enjoyable. But first we start off with this whole pact that Emma and Julian make with the Fae, which leads to Mark Blackthorn being brought into it. And so his return to the Los Angeles Institute, he's definitely very depressed and withdrawn and really doesn't want to have anything to do with the situation at all. And he's very, like out of it and just very, like, lost. And so then as he starts to sort of grow and get used to the situation that he's in, he becomes more of a comic relief character, and he has a lot of funny moments that you kind of see throughout most of the book. So I feel like that would be a way to just best describe him. But, like, that, because that's what you're generally seeing throughout a lot of the book. But then you see that he's definitely very romantic, and he has those special moments with Kiernan, and so it's interesting to see that. And then, you get to see then towards the end, definitely you get to see a romantic side then that starts to develop too. Because you have it with Kiernan, and then you have it with Emma. Because there's Emma and Julian, the whole parabatai bond, and the whole situation that goes down with that I'll be getting to in a minute. And so then Emma essentially asks Mark to fake date her so that Julian will kind of, like, back off and, like, nothing bad will happen to them. And then he, like, shuts the door casually and he's like, why lie? And that's, like, super intense. Another big moment where I'm like, are they gonna kiss now? Is this gonna be legit? Are we gonna have a love triangle? Like, what's going to go on here? And, like, what's happening? I'm, like, praying to God, like, that she would, like, shoot him off and be like, oh my God, no way, no, no, no. And then maybe actually tell him what's going on. Or, like, I have no idea then, but, like, I can't see them together. It can't happen. It just, oh. Because Mark is, like, the, like, center of this whole love pentagon that is going on here. Because he could end up with Emma, he can end up with Christina, or he can end up with Kiernan. So there's 3 possible love interests for him, which is absolutely insane. Because I have no idea where to peg him. Because he's so all over the place. And I think that's what makes his character so interesting. I'm talking about the parabatai bond, which becomes a lot more relevant in this story and is like the big thing that makes up this story, which is that parabatai can't fall in love because they will essentially become absolutely mad and crazy and, like, they really won't know right from wrong, and they'll, like, kill their own family members, and they'll be, like, a danger to themselves and the ones that they love and everybody else. So that's total madness. That's essentially what we're told. But I feel like there's a lot more to it, because a lot of that could be Clave influence, because they don't want any 2 parabatai to fall in love because they are going to gain in mass power, which you see from Emma and Julian, that they're gaining this immense power. And you start to see it very slowly develop, and I feel like over long periods of time, if they do still have that connection and they, like, want to still secretly date, which Emma obviously is trying to avoid by going to Mark, but I feel like that's something that could grow and they become all-powerful, but I feel like they couldn't possibly, like, become monsters unless it was, like, extremely, extremely extensive. And that's one of the things that they mentioned in the Booksplosion live show for Lady Midnight at the beginning of the month. And so I watched it and I was like, you want to know what? Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like there's a lot of Clave propaganda behind this and that there's still a lot more that we need to find out. But this is just the very introduction, because we find out the actual reason at the end of the book from Jem and Tessa when they come and save Kit and the Lost Herondale. So all of that situation. And so that's kind of where you find out about the parabatai bond and what it actually means to fall in love with your parabatai and why it's so forbidden. But I definitely feel like that's a lot of it is influenced Clave propaganda, and there's a lot more to it that we're not getting. And so I'm interested to kind of see where that continues to go, because we have a sex scene between Emma and Julian right in the beginning of the first book, which is so unlike Cassie Clare, because we only got, like, 1 Clave kiss per book for the first 4 books. So, like, that was huge, and it took us until, like, the 6th book to finally get a sex scene. So, like, to suddenly, like, just boom, go right into it is, like, absolutely fantastic. And I think it's also just because Emma and Julian have grown up with each other. They know each other. They've had this long development that we just haven't really seen because they've always been together, like, their entire life. And so there isn't any development that needs to go on here because it's been developing for 17 years. So, like, you see that already. And so that's cool that you get to just jump right into it. We just get to get right to it. And I think it's definitely very interesting to see how they're going to get out of this situation, whether there's going to be, like, a room that can fix it, or, like, whether we could do, like, a gem sort of thing. I don't know. But I'm excited to see how that gets fixed, because I definitely think it was very interesting to see all of that and all the Emma and Julian, like, stuff, and how, like, Julian made the whole shrine to Emma, which was so beautiful and so amazing. And then, oh my gosh, it was just so adorable, and I absolutely, absolutely loved that and seeing their relationship. And I definitely think that they're a very cute couple, and definitely endgame. But we need to get out of this whole parabatai bond thing. So how is that going to work out? I don't know, but I'm excited to see how Cassie goes about solving it, because it's definitely going to be very interesting and very painful to read. So another character that I really quickly want to talk about before I wrap up my review is Julian Blackthorn. And that is because he is so interesting in his behavior. Because he's definitely a very passionate character. He's passionate about his family, and he loves them, and he cares about them. And so at a very young age, he had to step up to the plate and care for them. He essentially killed his father, and so there was no one else there to care for his siblings and be a father figure, so he had to become that at 12 years old, which is absolutely insane, because I don't think any 12-year-old guy I could picture ever stepping up and actually raising their siblings. So seeing Julian do that, you feel like so bad for him, like so much of your heart goes out to him, because he's having to care for all of these siblings when there's no one else there. You have Arthur, who's supposedly running the Institute, but he's like gone mad from his experience at Paris that you find out about in the Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. And so he's just so gone that he's just pretty much sitting there, and Julian is having to, like, essentially just drug him for the purpose of getting him to be able to do what he needs to do to run the Institute while Julian is doing all of the actual work. And so you feel so bad for him because he's doing all this for his family in order to keep them together, and he has to go through all of this, and he can't be with Emma, and it's just like, you feel bad for him. Like, the amount of crap that keeps getting thrown at him is absolutely horrible. And it's just, oh my God, so horrible. But the one thing that's interesting is that with all this emotion and all of this passion that he has for his family, that can easily turn into, like, this rage that he can use to fight. Because you see how, in order to protect his family, he easily, like, throws Anselm Nightshade under the bus. And so that's kind of, like, very dark of him to just so willingly throw somebody under the bus for something that they could have or could have not done. Even though Anselm Nightshade, it's not like we feel, like, bad for him at all, but, like, still, he just threw him under the bus. And that's, like, what Julian would be able to do if he really cares about his family and they're really put in danger. He'd be willing to hurt anybody else in order to protect his family. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because he has this protective nature that can easily turn deadly. And so I definitely think we're going to see more of that. And, another thing I forgot to mention about Emma and Julian, their parabatai bond, is that they have this whole scene where Julian ends up getting shot and he's almost dead, so another horrible thing that gets thrown at him, and Emma's trying to heal him, and it should be technically impossible, but she's able to heal them because of this power between their parabatai bond. And so you see that, and I think that that's really interesting to see how that plays out and how they already are developing this power. So, like, what other things are they going to notice that sort of hints at them that they have something wrong, that they still care about each other? Because I feel like even what Emma's doing is not going to change anything, and I feel like having Mark there is just going to make Julian love Emma more, because he's going to feel more rage towards her. So it'll be interesting to see how that anger towards Emma and Mark plays out, if he's going to be angry about it or if he's going to accept it, or how that's all going to go down, considering what passion he has for his family and what passion he has for Emma, and how that fuels their bond and etc. So that's pretty much it for this review. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about this book, but there are plenty more books I gotta read and review, so I'm going to say that that is pretty much it for this book. I cannot wait to get to Lord of Shadows, which comes out next year, and I can't wait to find out more about all these characters and where everything goes, because there's so much that happened in this book that I could barely even get to, but I totally wish I could talk about it for hours. So I'm going to say that's pretty much it, and I will see you guys in my next review. Goodbye.